Welcome in. It's another Football Friday. Yes, UConn football is back, baby. Big win over Merrimack with another opportunity against a Power 5 maybe an ACC scalp to grab this weekend against none other than the hated Duke Blue Devils. You're locked on UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a quick moment to ask for a small favor. If you're enjoying the content here, please take a second to subscribe to the show. Follow the audio versions as well, wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Transistor Radio. I don't care. It really helps the show grow, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support. It means the world to us. Keeps us going strong every day. Also, every follow, every subscription, every download of this podcast helps create more revenue for UConn NIL. So as we are trying to grow the show, know that every penny I make on this show, a 10% donation goes to Bleeding Blue for Good. So by supporting Locked On UConn, you are directly affecting the UConn athletic program. We thank them so much for their partnership. Thank you for being a part of this Locked On community. We have a packed show today. Let's get the guys in from the TNT. As always, TNT College Football Podcast. Let's get the boys in here. And there they are. Let's unmute their mics. We are with Bobby Wilson and Pete Callen. Boys, let me tell you, that's more like it. Am I right? That felt great to watch a game like that. Can we look forward to more of that this year? That's my first question of the day. I don't care who answers. I'm fired up.
I hope so. You see me making the sign of the cross right there. I'm hoping so. But at least for 1 week, yeah, that felt awfully good. And it was totally unexpected. We grilled that team last week, detailing the things that they had to do. And it did to a T exactly what we said they'd have to do in order to reverse things. And they emphatically made a statement against Merrimack. I couldn't be happier.
Bobby, before you answer, you know what it made me think of? Because, again, this has always been a basketball podcast, and obviously as football season rolled around, we've decided to jump in on the college football fray for obvious reasons. We really appreciate you guys doing that with us. But what we learned about the basketball program is Luke Murray handles any social media, any podcast that has any negative talk about their team, and he gives it to the players to watch. I don't know if the football team does that, but it would be interesting to know if they heard us and they were like, oh, okay, I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show these three what's going on this weekend. So that's honestly, I was walking around with my kids listening to the game on the radio going, man, I hope they heard us. And it's all love. I was so happy. Bobby, what do you think?
It's funny you say that because Pete and I say that about the show that we do as well. Sometimes we're like, man, did they really listen to what we said? Because they just went out and did the exact same thing that we were talking about. But yes, obviously could the first quarter, especially, could we have literally played any better? That was darn near perfect. It was just so much fun to watch, so much fun to see our guys go out there and execute at the level that they did. And like you said, hopefully, like Pete and you, Mark, have said, hopefully we can carry this over, not only into next week or this coming week against Duke, but throughout the whole season.
Yeah, again, it's funny you should mention the first quarter. They scored an FBS school record for most points in the first quarter with 35 points. FBS school record for most points in the first half, 56 points. So tied the FBS school record for total points in a single game with 63. And the all-time school record for total offense for 624 total yards. So, yes, I think they listened. I think they understood the assignment, as people like to say. And that's what you're supposed to do, though. And I know the haters are saying, well, it's just Merrimack, small school. I saw some of the funniest stuff, and not disparaging Merrimack, but, people are going to make funny and things like that on the internet. And one of my favorite comments was, I don't think I know anybody that's ever walked a foot on Merrimack's campus. So, people are going to have jokes, but that's what you do when the UConn men or women in basketball play Quinnipiac or they play Fairfield and they destroy them. people are happy because that's what they're supposed to do. The UConn football team should destroy lower level teams. Correct?
Absolutely.
All right.
Question.
So before we go to the next topic, this is the biggest. I feel like this is the biggest topic going into this week. We have Duke coming up. We'll preview that here in a second. We have a little bit of a quarterback controversy. Just when everything's going right, Joe Fagnano had to come in and lead the nation in QBR, and then all of a sudden, everyone, at least the people I'm talking to, I don't have a stronghold in that locker room. I don't have any sources within Morris staff, but I will say that it is kind of interesting that he hasn't announced that Nick Evers is the starting quarterback this week. He has said publicly that if Nick Evers is 100% healthy, he is 100% the quarterback all the time. Do you think there's a quarterback controversy? Bobby, go first.
Well, the 2 deep that they put out this week had Nick listed number 1 as well.
Yeah,
so
I did see that.
The world that we live in college athletics, we understand the NIL aspect. Obviously, Nick is here because he was able to get what he's earned. And so by all means, I mean, he's going to be the guy. Mora has said that. He's come out and said that. We know the world of college athletics now and where it is. Kudos to Nick or to Joe, sorry, for how he's handled this, the way he's played. He's been fantastic, honestly. And it's, I guess we can say it's a good spot to be in because heaven forbid Nick goes down again. We have a guy that we can trust to come in and run the offense.
Pete, I have a similar question. You can answer it. You can answer the previous question, but I also am interested in your take on this. Joe is the hot hand. We understand the Nick Evers NIL aspect of this, that he earned his spot to come here. But what about the aspect of Joe has been in this offense longer? He's playing. He's got a connection with his receivers. He's throwing well. And now you go up against a Duke team that has won 2 games in a row. But I did a show earlier the week that said, is this the perfect time to catch them? Because they got a nice slate ahead of them. North Carolina, Florida State. They're looking to play bigger teams that are in front of them. Could they be overlooking us? And I almost feel like it's a mistake to put Nick into this game because I feel like Joe has a spark with this offense where we could potentially capitalize. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a tough call for the coaches in terms of just looking at results because Icy Joe has played well. He's come in and he shored up a lot of the nuance that he showed last year in a negative sense about, holding on to the ball and not getting the ball off on time. He seems to have, shored up some of those shortcomings he demonstrated last year into some really solid play this year. Again, though, they made their bed with Nick, and with the new world that's in existence now, I guess that influences your decisions a little bit more in terms of who you commit to. With either man, though, I still have the sense that the offense is still trying to solidify their identity. They had a really bad game against Maryland, and they had a really good one against Merrimack. So this game and probably the next one will be the telltale games to decide and determine what they're capable of doing on a consistent basis and what they have to shore up moving forward.
Yeah, and before we move on to the next topic, which is Duke and the road ahead, do you think, guys, because my only argument to starting Joe this weekend against Duke, and I'll go to you first, Bobby, on this, is that there are 6 home games in a row after this. Like, you have a nice stretch, and they're not playing easy competition, but they're playing teams that you're not playing on the road. That's the bottom line. So for Nick to be thrown back in off a concussion in his first 2 starts at UConn or at Maryland, at Duke, it's kind of tough. I mean, you're kind of asking a guy a lot who hasn't played a lot of football and hasn't gotten a lot of reps. Bobby, what are your thoughts? Like, I mean, if I was the coach, and I know people hate when you do this because you're not, but I would start Joe and have Nick as my emergency quarterback. And if something goes wrong, you throw him in there. But if Joe plays well and they win, then you can go back to Nick, and everyone knows that Nick is the guy. And you got a nice stretch of home games where you can just let him run wild.
I would personally agree with that. If I'm the coach, I would not let Nick step on the field if he is not 100% healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with concussions as a coach and as a player. It's not something to play around with. And I feel like in this circumstance, making sure he is 100% good to go when he is, like you're saying, when we have that home slate, we have a real opportunity there. Throwing him into an environment, yes, Duke isn't known for being the craziest environment, but at the same time, it is a road game and a Power 4 program. Throwing him out there like that, coming off with an injury, could potentially lead to maybe some negative results potentially, which could lead to his confidence taking a hit. But again, I'm big on if he's not 100% healthy, I wouldn't let him play.
Bobby, quick rebuttal before we get into the Duke stuff. Do you agree with that with Bobby, or do you have a different take?
If I were the coach, I would honestly agree with Bobby. I would play Joe. He has a hot hand, and there's just a lot of mitigating factors that support that decision more. You brought up the injury risk and a concussion reoccurring with Nick. I would want to make sure he's absolutely 100% healthy so he can take care of himself. And Duke is, despite its struggles, it's still returning a lot of pieces that put a pretty good beat down on you last year. So I would want to go with the hot hand. I would want to go with that rhythm that was established very powerfully the last game and see how far it stretches into that game with the same personnel, with the same consistency of leadership and play at that quarterback position. So, yeah, I would definitely, for the same reasons, play Joe this game.
Well, you heard it here first, guys. Nothing against Nick Evers. We want him to be 100% healthy, but I think we all are in a unanimous agreement that if Nick Evers is even 99% healthy and there's a 1% chance that he could reactivate that concussion or get another concussion or whatever, maybe not the time to do that is on the road against an ACC opponent. That ACC opponent is the Duke Blue Devils, and we will talk about them right after we pay some bills. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S.-based customers. When you're hiring for a business, finding the right talent quickly and effectively is essential. And that's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With over 70% of LinkedIn users not actively visiting other job boards, you're missing out if you're not actively using LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs connects you with qualified candidates in just 24 hours, helping you find professionals that fit your business needs, even those who aren't actively searching for a job. Whether you need experts or temporary roles or long-term positions, LinkedIn has the tools to help you hire faster. Ready to take your hiring to the next level? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege today. And we're back on Locked On UConn. Okay. We all hate Duke, right? Safe to say.
Yes.
What would it mean to this program to go into Wallace Wade Stadium and get that ACC scalp? What would it do for perception? Pete, you're a former player. What would that do for this team?
I think it would turn some heads a little bit in national media and local fans saying, okay, we're stepping and this program's moving in the right direction. They've come back pretty well, shown some resiliency, coming back from a week 1 thumping and putting together 2 straight wins. One in an impressive style, the way they should against an FCS opponent. And if they go down on the road and beat an ACC up and comer like Duke, I think would speak well for the program.
But you, Bobby, what does this do for perception? And do you think is there something specific? Think about it from your coaching days. Is there something specific that you think that they can exploit offensively to Duke's defense? They have a defense. Duke's defense has been strong. They just beat Northwestern in double overtime, I think. But they have some injuries piling up. Are there some cracks that we can get through on that defensive side?
Well, watching the Northwestern game from this past week, they had some issues up front stopping Northwestern. And Northwestern has a very powerful offensive line. Northwestern's a very run-heavy team. And it's something Pete and I have talked about is let's run Victor in the middle instead of every time he comes out on the field, everybody knows he's going outside. So let's try something there. We can obviously Cam Edwards, we know what he can do. And we got other guys, Darrell and others as well that can really do some things. I think that there is a potential for us to be able to run the ball well against this team, as we saw Northwestern do. Elon had some success as well, Elon being an FCS opponent nonetheless. But I feel like there's something there. Obviously, our passing attack has fared well. We got a lot of guys clicking from this past game against Merrimack. Obviously, Skylar Belly, second in the country from a transfer perspective and receiving yards. We know if he would have played more against Merrimack, he would be the clear number 1 guy. So there's an opportunity there as well to attack them on the outside because we've done a good job doing that thus far.
Pete, they have Malik Murphy. He's a transfer from Texas, got a huge arm. Talk to me about what the DBs have to do. Obviously it's more than that, but you're a DB, so I'm taking it straight to you. They don't have the burners that Maryland has. So I think it's a better matchup for UConn in terms of speed. So it probably is going to be more about technique and how they tackle and versus more of a talent thing. Just lay it out for us. Like, how do we stop this quarterback that's got this monster arm? I know plenty of people down here, you're in Charlotte, I'm in Greensboro. We're excited about this kid coming to Durham. So what does UConn have to do to stop Malik Murphy?
It's a triple option threat offense with heavy use of RPO. So with that in mind, all units have to do their part in being disciplined, playing with intensity, doing their job, and especially and particularly tackling. Whether this guy gets in the open field on a run, whether the receivers get open passing lanes to receive passes on RPOs, playing run fits in the run game, everybody's got to do their part. It's another test for this new 3-3-5 defense where people are going to have to be disciplined, mechanically disciplined, schematically disciplined in order to stop Duke. I mean, it's not going to be an easy task. He's a very talented player. Duke has talented players, ACC type roster, across the board. Yes, they're a little bit weaker than last year, but nonetheless, they're still going to provide a challenge for our Huskies.
Bobby, to you, on the topic of are we back? That's almost not a rhetorical question, but are we back in the sense that even if this is a loss this weekend, is it going to be the type of loss that we thought we would have against Maryland before that debacle? Are we back in that sense where we're going to be competitive? We're going to, do you feel comfortable saying that this week? I know we didn't feel comfortable last week talking about that for obvious reasons, and then they proved us wrong. But I'm curious what your feelings are now.
I certainly think so. I think I'll say I know that the team didn't respond against Maryland how they wanted to. They came out against Merrimack, and this is the team that we thought that we were going to have. Now, maybe they exceeded our expectations in the Merrimack game from that regard as well. But I firmly believe that we're going to see a much better product this week. Like you said, Mark, we match up a bit better against Duke than we did against Maryland with all the speed that they have. Also, it being our third game, we've had an opportunity to work out some things. So now we can get in a little bit better rhythm, especially on that defensive side of things where we're throwing so many new things out there. The key with Duke is Malik Murphy they're just going to RPO like Pete was saying. And if we can keep him in the pocket, make him be a thrower, he's much less consistent in that regard. When he's able to roll outside of the pocket and make throws, he's a very consistent player in that regard. So if we're able to keep him in that tackle box, I like our chances a lot more in that regard.
Pete, this is for you because I always get frustrated whether I'm watching college football or pro football when teams aren't prepared for what looks like an obvious screen. Duke does a lot of this. Not only do a lot of RPO, but they do a lot of bubble screens. They do a lot of quick passing game to kind of get their guys in space. What do you have to do from the defensive side of the ball to stop that from the player side and also the coaches? What does the scheme look like? What are the keys? What are like when you're playing, the big word for me back in the day when I played 1 year of football was you have to trust your keys and then make a play, right? Whatever the key is, you make a move. What are the keys that you see on the field to stop these bubble screens and, not to bring up my football team, but when Daniel Jones threw that interception to the linebacker, he saw that right away and saw the key and picked it off midair, 5 yards away from him. What do we need to do something like that where we kind of we see something and we react to it from your perspective as a former DB?
It's pretty much no different from what you just said. You read your keys, react with the appropriate angles, and put yourself in position to either redirect the screen if you're a perimeter contained guy, and or fill your alley and fill your angles in pursuit on the backside and make a tackle for short gain. It's really not that.
Let me ask this question off of that. But I appreciate that. Like, how hard is it if like you see it and then you're like the second guy in that has to kind of contain essentially so that you have more friends come in and help with the gang tackling? How hard is it to lose control when you're about to make a big play in that scenario?
Well, the biggest matchup, for instance, on the bubble screen is the corner and the wideout. Right. The wideouts are coming in bigger packages, and the corners are usually smaller, and so that type of matchup really is won in the weight room during the summer. That's where you prepare for that, and it's the corner learning how to, in essence, be a de facto defensive lineman, learn how to push a guy off his chest, maybe leverage him in the running lane so that you use that offensive player as an extra defender, try to influence that tempo and influence the flow of that play toward your teammates coming from, coming from the inside. That's the biggest matchup on those perimeter screens, is that corner and that wideout.
I love it. We're going to go pay some bills and do this final segment. Are we fooling ourselves? Is UConn really going to win this game? We'll get some predictions. We'll get Bobby's take on that coming back off the break. With my new daughter arriving within a week, yes, life is about to get even busier. That's why I've been using Factor to stay on track with nutritious meals without the hassle of cooking or cleaning. Factor's ready-to-eat meals help me fuel up while managing all of the chaos. If you're trying to maintain a healthy routine, no matter how hectic things get, Factor has you covered. Factor offers fresh, never frozen, chef-crafted meals that are dietitian approved and ready in just 2 minutes. Whether you're looking for Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or like me, do keto, they have many options. Factor makes it easy to eat well, even when life gets busy. They have 35 different meals with more than 60 add-ons every week. You'll never run out of new flavors to explore. Whether you're crushing wellness goals or just want a delicious meal, Factor has options that fit your lifestyle. From premium ingredients like filet mignon and blackened salmon to easy breakfast options, Factor keeps your kitchen time minimal and your meals amazing. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com. LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Hey, Husky fans, let's talk about home field. There is no better way to represent the Huskies with home field apparel. They've got the most comfortable, vintage-inspired UConn gear that lets you show off your school pride and style. Home field's premium apparel not only looks great, but it feels amazing too. They've taken the time to research and craft the perfect designs that represent UConn's rich history. So you can wear your pride with every stitch. From sweatshirts to tees like the one I'm wearing here, the 1999 national championship, we shocked the world tee from our first men's basketball championship. I love it. It's comfy, soft, but they represent the first team that won it all for us back in 98, 99. And here's the best part. Right now, you get 15% off your first order when you use the promo code UConn24 at checkout. Just head to homefieldapparel.com, use the code UConn24, and grab this gear, guys. It's amazing. I love it. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn. Bobby Wilson, Pete Callen with me from the TNT College Football Podcast, as always, on our Friday Football UConn Locked On UConn podcast. Bobby, are we fooling ourselves? Is this really gonna happen where we're gonna have a competitive game, or are we gonna have a chance to win this game? We're a 17-point underdog. Vegas is rarely wrong. It's why the house always wins, right? So why is the house not going to win this time?
Well, I think that we're in a better spot. We're coming off of a victory. We got a ton of momentum in our favor, you can say. Yes, Duke's 2-0, but they haven't looked like a formidable, like a top-notch team in either of their two games.
Sure.
They've struggled running the football. That's something that we usually do a good job stopping. That 17-point spread is where I would honestly put it if I'm being completely honest.
Okay.
But at the same time, something Pete and I have said is if we do start 1-2, it's not the end of the world, because the back half of our schedule is favorable on our behalf. We got 6 straight home games coming up. We're in a good position. But I will also add, and I know that we were a bit excited going into the Maryland game, but we are in a much better position this week to potentially upset Duke than we were going into the Maryland game.
Pete, do you agree with that we're in a better position to upset Duke than we were in the Maryland game? Do you think it's just matchup based, or do you think it's just because we were able to right the ship a little bit?
We got a rhythm back, but my instinct tells me I have to wait and see for this game. We're coming off a huge momentum shift in the way we played against Merrimack. One of the things you worry about as a coach is what kind of momentum is going to carry over to the next week, particularly when you have a jump in competition like you do here. And quite frankly, we, with this collection of players, have to prove that we are professional enough to come in with the attitude we have, the attack and the intensity to up it in order to beat a team like this. I mean, the fact of the matter is they're still P14. We still got to come in basically and punch people in the mouth, put them on the ground and keep punching until they're knocked out. Bottom line, and whether these guys are willing to do and what they're ready to do, come Saturday to do that.
Well, I was going to bring this up anyway, but this is a perfect segue to it because we're going to get to our predictions before we head out today. Bobby was at Northern Illinois versus Notre Dame. He witnessed one of the greatest upsets, at least in their history, one of the worst losses in Notre Dame's history. Who's to say we can't do that this weekend? What's the recipe to do a Northern Illinois situation, NIU situation this weekend? Obviously not as big of an upset. Duke's not ranked in the top 5, but similar in that regard.
Again, I'm doubtful. You know why? Because if we go to a switch in quarterback, especially. There's just a part of me that has seen enough of these scenarios to where if you instill a change like that,
Sure.
and trying to go in and go down and beat somebody, you really better have your stuff together in order to pull that upset off. And, it's got to be a big jump in execution and talent. So it's like, that's the question that these Huskies got to answer with that change. Or if they stick with Joe, can they continue the momentum? And that's a lot. That's a lot speaking up against them. They have yet to prove they can do that. So the onus, again, this is tough big brother love. What are you going to do about it? What are you guys going to go in? How are you going to come into that game? Are you man enough to do that? They're capable for sure, but they got to go out, like I said, come out swinging and not look back.
Bobby, you were at the game. What did you see from NIU? And when did you know that this might happen? Like this might actually start to. And I'm just talking about it because upsets happen every week. It's rare that you see an upset of this magnitude. Again, lower level upset. But I'm curious. We all know what they look like, but you were there up close. What did you see?
There's a few things. I've become close with the NIU football program with Coach Hammock. I talked to him. I've for the past 5 or so years now, I go to at least one game of theirs every year. I go to their spring game. I'm around them. It doesn't surprise me what happened because they have one thing they have in their favor is they had the most returners that have been in a program for 4 years in FBS college football. So they got guys that have been there and done that for this program or for that.
Bobby, where was this information on Saturday when I had a parlay and they wrecked it? Come on, man. You gotta spread the love, brother. Like, what's going on?
I was never ever going to say they were going to beat Notre
Dame. No, I had Notre Dame money line. That's the best thing because the spread was ridiculous. It was like a 30-point spread. But it was just like one of those long, silly parlays for like $5. But I won't lie to you, the only one that lost was Notre Dame. So I'm blaming you, Bobby. Thank you so much. But no, I mean, like, I'm a huge fan of Coach Hammock because I don't know if you guys saw that game. What I love about him is one of his players got a personal foul, and he literally ran up to them and grabbed him. Even my wife was making dinner, and she went, "Ooh, I like that, coach." So, like, you know what I mean? Like, that you just don't see it that as often anymore. Like, where there's Pete and I was talking about this accountability stuff. And so I fear, like Pete does, that if they turn to Nick Evers this week, and it's nothing against him, that they will lose this game by more than 17 points, and it's going to be ugly. But if they turn to Joe Fagnano, who's, again, hate to use his terms, I know it's negative, more of a game manager, okay, so what? I think that he stabilizes their offense right now until we can get Nick's feet wet. And that 6-game homestand is going to look pretty nice if he gets his feet wet there. That's my piece on that. Pete?
I hope to God, Nick, if he's starting, proves us wrong. Honestly,
God, yeah.
It's historically, I'm just looking at historic, and I can't think of specific games, college or pro, where this has happened. But we've all seen this. We've lived long enough to see these games in a lifetime where a team has built up momentum in one game and they're coming into a tough challenge. They go to a projected starter and it just doesn't work out quite the way it's hoped for and expected. And it's no knock on Nick. It's just, this game is a game of momentum, a game of rhythm. Individual play is about, getting a rhythm. And just Joe's play has made enough of a statement to where he's one of the leading passers in the country. I don't think you want to, kind of mess with that. And so, if you come in and Duke, and if he doesn't have as great a game, then it's okay. It's kind of what you expected. Upper level, program is doing their thing and shutting him down. And, it's kind of, and then you can go back to Nick. Nick is still has only thrown low double-digit passes in his career. So it's hard to justify if you want to build momentum for the team to stick them in there, just to stick them in there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And again, it's not against the player.
I know that. And Bobby, I'll give you the last word on this before we get you guys' predictions. I know we're kind of beating a dead horse, but I think it's enough to there's enough meat on these bones to kind of pick at them a little longer, because if you just look at essentially college football is semi-professional because you get paid. Okay. So there's got to be ROI and there's got to be accountability. So if we're going off of that premise, the scenario that's going on in the NFL with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin, Russell Wilson was all set to start that game. Tweaked his calf in training camp. In the last week of training camp, Justin Fields steps up. What does Mike Tomlin say in his next press conference? Right now, Russell Wilson is not available to us. He's not 100% healthy. Justin Fields is going to be our starter. I wanted to hear Jim Mora say, right now, Nick Evers is recovering from a concussion. We feel like he needs one more week to – and that's his – and I'm not using this because I'm not pretending that they are covering anything up. But that's a coach's cover. We know what coach speak talks about. You know what I mean? Everybody knows what coach speak sounds like. So I just wanted Jim Mora to come out. Maybe he'll come out tomorrow or Friday and say, the depth chart was there, but after further consideration, we're going to go with Joe because we want to give Nick one more week. I hope that's the case. Don't know if that's going to happen. Bobby, last word on that, and then we'll go to predictions.
I agree with that. Again, I'll just continue to say if he's not 100% healthy, I wouldn't play him. That's just how I would roll with it.
Gotcha. All right, Pete. What you got for a prediction? I know you've been pessimistic after drinking that Kool-Aid week one. What are you thinking for this game? And are you going?
I'm definitely going.
Okay.
I'll definitely be there Saturday. This is, despite the great weekend we had, this is a tough ask for us. We still have 51 players. We did a great big service to us and to ourselves and integrating a lot of folks, getting them involved. And I have to eat crow with Gordon Samus in terms of the creativity he came out with and called plays.
Yeah.
He did an outstanding job calling plays. So it's going to be closer, but I think we're going to probably lose by 7, 24-17.
All right. I accept that. Bobby, thoughts?
I was same thing. I mean, yes, I'm very happy to be wrong in the ways that we were last week, and just hoping it can carry over. I'm going to go 31-17. And until we can prove it at the highest level against these upper echelon teams, I'm going to just lean that way. Like I said before, I think we're in a better spot to be able to potentially do this. But until we prove it, I'm going to just say multiple touchdown loss.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with both of you and go UConn 29, Duke 23. Let's go. I'm pulling the reverse, Pete. I gave you all the doom and gloom this entire episode. They should go with Joe, Nick, whatever. I think they're going to win the game. I've talked to multiple people inside that building and in the administration, and everyone's super excited. The guys feel like they can win this game. I don't think and I don't know this for a fact. I tell you this right now. I don't think they truly believe they can beat Maryland. I just don't think it. I think they needed a game before that Maryland game to see what they had. And I don't feel like they felt like they had that opportunity. And that was just a terrible matchup for them from game one. This Duke game is not the same thing. It's like comparing a Ferrari to a Pinto. Okay. Duke is a slower offense. They still have some good players. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the depth of that. I mean, Maryland brought in like 6-7 running backs that game. Like it wasn't even close. So I think they win this game, and has nothing to do with the fact that I dislike Duke with all of my heart and soul at all. Not even close. I wish I could be there with you, Pete, but as I told you, I want to stay married, so I'm going to stick around in case my wife gives birth. Although, if you are going to the game, our title sponsor, Game Time, I checked the app for a buddy of mine today, sent it to him, $20 off your first purchase. Use Locked On College for $20 off. You can probably get a 2-for-1 special there. Some of these seats, 50-yard line, are like $25, so you can get like buy one, get one free. It's a great deal. Go to this game. Wallace Wade Stadium in Durham. Guys, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto. For Bobby Wilson, for Pete Callen, we're asking you to stay locked in, stay connected. Make sure this toughness meter is rising because this UConn football team is coming to play this weekend, and we're excited about it. Go Huskies.